Welcome to my channel, where OP gets his grandpa elected HOA president to fight back against them. Our next Reddit post is from a user. My dad is a boomer who has been retired for several years and lives in a house that he built with his own hands when he was younger. He's not great with technology and even less great with social media. As such, he has no idea how to use the internet and doesn't have a cell phone or email address. That being said, he has a landline and checks his voicemail regularly. He lives in a decently sized city in an older neighborhood. The homes were built between the 40s and 60s, and most people who live there have lived there for decades. There's also a good amount of retirees like him. They have an HOA, but for many years it was very chill. Within the last couple years, though, the board changed over to some entitled Karens, who now want to micromanage everyone. The most recent thing they did was send out a letter stating that all grass had to be cut to a certain length, something my dad has always done. It then goes on to state that if your lawn is too long twice, we will cut it for you and bill you at the standard rate. My dad called to ask what this meant exactly. They stated that they would come to your house and cut your grass if they deem it too long. If you don't pay the fee, they'll add it to your property taxes. And if you don't pay that, they'll take you to court. My dad still wasn't sure what this meant exactly, so he asked how long is too long. The Karen on the phone gave some BS answer about how they didn't know it when they saw it. My dad said that he was going to wait until they came to his house to see what they do. A few days later, while my dad was mowing his lawn, one of the board members from the HOA walks up to him and says, "Your grass is too long and we're going to cut it for you." My dad says, "Oh, okay," and lets him in. The guy pulls out a tape measure and starts measuring everything. My dad asks, "So where does it say I can't grow my grass longer than this?" The guy tells him, "We just think it should be cut." My dad lets him continue cutting his lawn, and after he's done, the guy bills him for $85. My dad pays it since he had already mowed his lawn and figured why not just let him finish the job. But he was furious. Now, he calls me and tells me what happened. I tell him to get the bylaws of the HOA and see if they have any rules regarding lawn lengths. Well, the HOA bylaws don't mention anything about lawn lengths, so technically they did nothing wrong. At least they actually sent a letter giving notice of their new rule. I told him it was time to fight fire with fire and get him a cell phone and onto Facebook. It took a little convincing, but I got him a flip phone and helped him set up a Facebook account. Once he was on there, I showed him how to post about the HOA and the ridiculous rules. He posted basically what I wrote for him, word for word. The next day, his post gets several responses from neighbors, most of whom have had problems with the HOA in the past. One of the comments is from someone who works for a landscaping company and offers to mow everyone's lawns for half price, as long as they post about it on Facebook. My dad paid full price for the first mow, but the landscaper honored his discount for subsequent mows. Apparently, the company ended up getting slammed with requests and had to hire additional help. My dad also discovered that there's a local Facebook group for the neighborhood. He joined and posted the same message there. He also contacted the mayor to see if they could do anything about the HOA. The mayor told him that unless the HOA did something illegal, there was nothing they could do. My dad told him that the HOA isn't doing anything yet, but that might change in the future. The mayor told him to keep him updated. At the end of the month, the HOA held their monthly meeting. They refused to let my dad speak about the new rule at the meeting, so he and a few other angry residents walked out. Later that week, he received a strongly worded letter from the HOA about his violation of decorum at the meeting. My dad simply responded by asking what decorum means. This really pisses the HOA off because they use big words they don't understand either. A few weeks later, there was another HOA meeting. BT's point, my dad had gained a lot of confidence and decided to run for HOA president. I helped him make some campaign posters, and we put them up all over the neighborhood. To my surprise, he won by a landslide. In his victory speech, he thanked everyone for voting for him and promised to help make the HOA better. He also announced that he would reimburse everyone for the cost of having their lawns mowed, and those who didn't want their lawns mowed would receive double that amount. Everyone cheered, especially the landscaper. He must have made a killing from all of that half-price work. OP, if you ever write a story about this, please include the part where you get your grandpa to run for office. That sounds like a great story, but if I was the landscaper, I would have raised prices by 200%. You're welcome. Our next Reddit post is from another user. I live in an HOA community in Florida. My next-door neighbor recently had an issue with the HOA. Her and her husband are in their early 90s. The home had been in her family since the 1960s, has lived there for at least 50 years. Their yard has always been full of knickknacks and statues, some of which have been there for decades. Some of these things are very large, and some date back to when the original owners of the neighborhood placed them there. There are gnomes, wind spinners, fountains, etc. The HOA sent them a letter saying they needed to remove some of the items in their yard. My neighbor and her husband were completely baffled. They had never had an issue with the HOA before. They hadn't even heard of an HOA when they moved in. They asked the HOA to clarify which items they needed to remove. The HOA would not specify. All they said was they wanted the front of the house cleared. She asked me, her neighbor, to go with her to the HOA meeting to discuss the issue. The HOA said she needed to remove any item that was older than 30 years. Most of the items were older than 30 years. She tried to explain that she didn't know which ones they wanted her to remove, and they would unclarify. They just kept saying they wanted her yard cleaned up. She has arthritis and can't lift or move most of the items by herself. Her husband has dementia and is unable to assist her. The HOA threatened to fine her. She went home and started taking down the decorations. She was devastated. My wife and I went to the next HOA meeting and asked them why they were being so mean. We explained the situation and asked them to be reasonable and give her more time. They said no. We asked if they could help her remove the items, and they said no. They threatened to have her items removed by a professional crew and bill her for it. After the meeting, we spoke to the president of the HOA. We explained that she was a senior citizen and couldn't take down these items by herself. He said he was sorry, but the HOA had to enforce the rules equally among all residents. We pointed out that he was only elected because he promised to clean up the neighborhood, and now he was trying to ruin an elderly woman's life. He said he was sorry, but the HOA had to uphold the rules. Primera, had enough. I got up in his face and said, "You're a freaking sociopath. You're destroying a lifelong resident's quality of life for no good reason. I hope karma comes back and bites you in the ass." My wife grabbed my arm and pulled me down. She told me to calm down and leave it alone. She spoke to the president again, and he told her that if we were going to support the HOA, then we shouldn't live in the neighborhood. We left the meeting and went straight to our room. My wife called the police and filed a complaint. The cops came to the house and asked why we had filed a complaint. My wife explained the situation. The cop asked if she wanted to press charges, and she said, "Hell no. Why would I want to put that monster in jail?" The cop laughed and said that he understood. He spoke to the president of the HOA and told him that he had a lot of nerve threatening a 92-year-old woman. He warned the HOA that if they harassed her again, they would be in deep shit. The next day, my wife went back to the HOA and demanded that they apologize to her neighbor. The president wouldn't apologize, but he did back down. He said they would give her an extra 30 days to remove the items. That was my channel, and if you like this content, check out my podcast, where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new videos every single day.